Hello and welcome to the Jungle, a Cincinnati Bengals podcast brought to you by the wonderful folks over at Blue Wire. Hello, everyone. My name is Owen Timmerding, joined alongside by my wonderful partner, Caroline Palmer. Pretty nice sports week, Caroline. We had the national championship on Monday, an awesome Final Four. I got the Masters on my TV right here. I watched some horse racing when I was doing some research, kind of all over the place when the swing of baseball season, but we're not here to talk about any of that. We're preparing for the NFL draft, which starts in 2 weeks from today.
Oh, yeah. It's approaching really fast, actually. I was looking the other day and I was like, "Oh my gosh, the draft is in 2 weeks." I feel like when we were talking about this the other day, it felt like it was like a month and a half ago, and
Yeah,
now it's here. So, it'll be very interesting to see how the next couple of weeks rolls around, but we're ready because this is kind of like the unofficial, like, restart of the football season, so to
I
speak, is the
agree.
draft. So, excited to have football back.
Yeah, and it does feel like we just did a couple podcasts about the Super Bowl and predicting free agency, and then we did the free agency talking, and all that's kind of slowed down. And now we've done some draft stuff before. Me and Tim did a draft show kind of in the middle of the dead period, but that was all just like very broad previews. But now we have some information, we have an idea, we're getting more and more firm mock drafts from the experts. I think we're really starting to narrow down what the Bengals are doing. And we talked off camera that we kind of thought we had an idea of what the Bengals were going to do, but we're kind of seeing stuff all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it further, but I genuinely thought I was like, "Okay, this is what they're gonna do round 1 and round 2," and then, honestly, like, Tuesday, I was looking just for fun, I check all the time, and then all of a sudden they change, and I was like,
Totally.
"Wait a minute, didn't they say they were gonna do this the whole time?" But we can get into that in a little bit, but
Yeah,
definitely they're trying to throw some confusion maybe, whether that's to throw some other teams off or throw
who
us
knows?
as
Yeah.
fans off. I don't really know, but we won't know until draft night exactly what they're doing. So,
I think it's interesting because you see, like I when I was doing my research, I was looking through a bunch of mock drafts. I was looking through the Athletics free preview of the NFL draft that they put out. It's called the Beast. It's pretty awesome. It's really got great in depth information on all the players essentially. But every single one of these guys in these 3 or 4 round mock drafts had different guys the Bengals taking. Some guys had trades. The Bengals website one was completely different. This is a
yeah.
funny tidbit that I'll add too is when the Bengals took Jamar Chase, I got some word online that the Bengals do a pre-draft like for like season ticket members or something like that, maybe, where they go
Mhm.
over what they think their plan is for the draft. And they told those fans that they were going to draft Penei Sewell instead of Jamar Chase at that
Huh.
meeting. So I don't really think anyone but the Bengals knows what they're doing up until they send that card in to the commissioner and they make that call to whoever they're taking. But it's just interesting. Like you hear all this stuff, and really, it's kind of just a crapshoot for what everyone's doing. The one thing I do think is fair to say is that we've kind of narrowed down the positions the Bengals will be targeting, at least in the first 3 rounds. We're going to focus on 1 and 2 today, but I think we can pick between 3 or 4 different areas here.
Yes, I wrote 4 specific positions
Yes.
down, and 2 of them I kind of combined together because I think they're relatively the same thing, so I guess you could say 3. The first one that I wrote is defensive end, and we
Mhm,
know that that is because of the Trey Hendrickson issue. At this point, I think he's gone,
mhm.
and I think that the Bengals need to address that. I think it's one of, if not their biggest individual positional need. Right up there with them is on the flip side of that line, they need a guard. It is
Yeah,
probably the most gaping hole on the offensive side. We need a guard, and round 1, round 2, I've seen it flip-flop where they take it depending on who's left. Definitely needs to be addressed. And the third one that I wrote was a DB/safety. That was the
mhm,
third one that I wrote. Their secondary has been ranked extremely low the past couple of years in terms of just tracking, marking. They weren't great in the zone last year. They just need a new like energy to that backfield that they don't currently have right now on the defensive side of the ball. So that's what I wrote. I don't know
yeah.
what your thoughts are, but that was
I got the same
what I
stuff.
wrote.
Yeah, I got the same stuff. I mean, I, uh, I kinda went by round, like, I wrote down round 1 and then listed 4 or 5 guys that I could see them targeting there, and it was a offensive tackle/guard who they basically said he could play either way. We'll get into the names here in a second. and a couple edge guys and a linebacker. I think the linebacker might be that fourth guy on that ring of needs that the Bengals have. But really, I I personally thought about a month ago that the Bengals were pretty firm on taking an edge guy in the
Mhm.
first round, definitely, kind of no matter what. I still think that's probably what's going to happen, but I mean, we're seeing more stuff now where they take a guard, and I mean, yeah, take a guard. They've clearly have made it, and I think that is changing because the Bengals came out and said during the owners' meetings that they weren't really going to pursue any more guards in free agency. So then that kind of leaves the door open for the Bengals to almost do anything in round one from their end, which
Yeah.
whether I disagree or not, agree or disagree about whether they should have signed a guard in free agency, I think they should have, and they still technically have
Mhm.
time. But
Yeah.
I think it's almost getting closer to a toss-up than we would have thought maybe a month ago on what positional need the Bengals will take in the first round at least.
Oh, yeah, because honestly, I thought it was, like, set in stone that the Bengals were gonna go for Mykal Williams from Georgia at
Yeah.
17. Like, that was based on research that I had seen, and I think, like, the first 4 of Mel Kiper's mock drafts all had Williams falling to the Bengals. I was like, you know what? This is a great pick. We talk a lot about how the Bengals just need very aggressive guys on the defensive line. Williams fits that category to a T. He was great at on a great Georgia football team. And I was like, I think this is a great pick. And then what you said, all of a sudden this whole guard thing comes into the equation, and you're like, hmm, like, is there, I mean, we can open this question, we can talk about it. Do we think that there is a guard in the draft that they'd be willing to risk losing out on a stronger defensive end class to
Mhm.
take a guard for a hole that they need? Like, I guess we can kind of open the floor there.
Yeah, I don't know, to be quite frank. I do think these defensive guys we talked about this is that it is so deep with how great these edge guys are, and it seems like we keep getting the best position on the football field. The position that I think keeps getting better faster in the NFL and in college and high school is that defensive end because it's
Mhm.
one of your best athletes on the field. It's usually your biggest guy who can move like a horse. And like you got names, and I got this name written down. I got Shamar Stewart, I got Walter Nolan, I got Mykal Williams as well. It's stuff like that where it's almost too hard to pass up on something like that. You can potentially, I'd say more often than not, you can find guards or offensive tackles in later rounds, especially in round two. And I was going to add this is that whatever position they don't take in round one, they probably will be taking in round two. So it's like you can flip it either way. Edge round one, definitely taking a guard in round two. I'd be surprised if they did something different than that.
Yeah, obviously, unless they trade it around, which we
Yeah,
can't predict that now. We can just talk about what they currently have available. I mean, I guess if I was in their position, which again, this is totally like a hypothetical situation, I would take an edge first just because I
yeah,
believe that there is more quote unquote generational or long-term talents at that position in this draft. Because you're not looking like last year where you had a Joe Alt on the board, which was like probably
mhm,
one of the best offensive line prospects we've seen in the last 15 years in the draft. We don't have one of those at O line this year. I mean, offensive linemen we've seen, especially in the last 5 years, start going in the top 10 because I agree with you. I think defensive end and offensive tackle are the two
yeah,
most important positions on the football field. I think that they are vastly more important than your quarterback, and people can come at me if they want, but that is truly what I believe because quarterback can't throw the ball if he's not protected, and
yeah.
quarterback can't throw the ball if he gets sacked. So I believe that those are the two most important positions. I think that those are the first two the Bengals should and will address. I think it's just what you said earlier is what order is the board going to go? Do they firmly believe in someone at tackle that they think might be like a sleeper pick that they have like found? Or are they going to jump on the defensive end class? Because I think a majority of those guys will go in the first round based on what I've seen.
Absolutely. And I think it's kind of funny because you almost counteracted your point of saying they wanted an edge, and you said the Bengals should or you need to beef up your line to protect your quarterback. And the Bengals' whole mo for the whole Joe Burrow era has been that he's just been on his back for half the time.
Hmm.
The thing about the Bengals is they could I could see them taking an offensive tackle over a guard, but more of a guy that's like a hybrid that is
Hmm.
versatile. I've seen a couple guys. One name I saw that I actually liked on the Bengals website was this kid named Gray Zabel from North Dakota State.
Mhm.
Gordon Field Yates, he was best player he saw at the Senior Bowl practices, and he's a guard that also has some center experience and is very movable on the line. Like, think about it. How many more years do the Bengals maybe? How many decent years of Ted Karras do the Bengals have left? I don't know what his contract looks like, but it's like he's getting up there in age. And I'd almost be more willing to take a guy that can play two positions. And if you can get that in the first round, great. This all comes down to, and we just keep saying this, is that this defensive end class is so good. And it starts from the top with Abdul Carter, and he's not going to fall to 17. But
No.
there'll be other guys like Mike Green from Marshall, like what I said, Shamar Stewart and Mykal Williams, which will be there for Cincinnati. James Pierce is another great example from Tennessee. These guys that were the best players on the field at their games every single time will be available for the Bengals at 17. And tell me what you think about this is that the Bengals are also in a position essentially where they can just take best available because 17 is a weird spot where you got to kind of see how the cards flow in front of you. And I think this might be the first year that the Bengals potentially are aggressive on the trade market, especially in the first round, because if they really like a guy, the importance of getting a pro ready edge or guard is monumental in this Bengals draft.
Mhm. Yes, they definitely need a cornerstone on either side of the
Yeah.
ball. I think currently with the repertoire and the personnel they have, I think in my personal opinion, I think it is more important that they get a defensive cornerstone because you look at that defense, you're like, who's the leader? It's a question mark.
Mhm.
Right now, like on the offensive side, you have Higgins, you have Chase, you have Burrow, you have Chase Brown, you have all these people that have been consistently providing on the offensive side of the ball. But again, I I would prefer to see defense go first, but again, I don't think I would be angry with a tackle pick in the first round. I'm very intrigued to see what they do.
Yeah.
I Because obviously we know they don't like to trade, they don't like to do this like waiting game, which that's basically what trade on the draft is like. Do they need someone that badly that they fear is gonna go in the top 10? Because, I mean, quarterback class is not great this year. It's been a
No.
huge talking point where you've got Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, that's about it. I've heard Jackson Dart from Ole Miss maybe twice, but,
Well, I
like,
think
that's
he's good.
pretty much it. I think he's great too,
Yeah.
but I think those are the only 3 that anyone thinks would ever touch
Yeah.
grass. I mean, and if I get proven wrong, amazing for the other guys. But I just believe that it's not strong enough to where you're gonna see cornerbacks,
Mhm.
linebackers, tackles, defensive ends, they're all gonna go. That's gonna make up 90% of the picks before the Bengals go. So if there's somebody that they really like and they need to trade up a spot or 2, or if there's somebody lower down they want and they gain draft capital, I mean, both are very good options from that 17th spot. It
Mhm.
just depends on how aggressive the organization is willing to be in the draft, which again is a question mark because you never really know what to expect.
Why don't you I want you to give me some of your names that you like. It doesn't really matter what round, just kind of who are your top guys at edge and corner. I know we talked about them too. Just kind of go down your line and give me some of your favorite prospects.
So a lot of the names that you said, like I've been looking a lot at first and second just because we've talked about a little bit. I had Kenneth Grant from Michigan, Mykal Williams, and Shamar Stewart as my top three
Mhm.
for who the Bengals should take, which in most picks they all fall in that 15 to 19 range. So it is available. And I've talked about a lot on the podcast. I think we need like the Bengals defense needs like go-getters. And these guys watching college football, they are just full speed, laser focused, like aggressive DTs and defensive ends. And I think that is what we need. And if you lose a guy like Hendrickson, who that was literally his MO, was getting to the quarterback, you've got to replace him with someone like that because they don't currently have another one that's at least proven on
Mhm.
their roster right now. And I think that's the way to go. One of my late round picks, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit that I
Yeah.
found is a guy by the name of Charles Grant. He is an offensive tackle for William and Mary.
All right.
Um, he is a multiple time FCS All American. And what I found that was really interesting when I was doing my research is William and Mary is the alma mater of the Bengals scouting director. So that is where the connection was. I looked at an interview. I think he's actually met with them as well because of that connection. I went and did my research and watched a little bit of William and Mary film, and he's a
Nice.
bigger guy. He seems to be like he seems to have like that MO of like they need to build a line around Joe Burrow. He kind of gives me like a Joe Tooney-esque vibe, like
Yep.
kind of like in that range, which again is exciting because Joe Tooney is an amazing. He kind of reminds me a little bit in the way he's like, and especially in the run block. It looks very similar. So that was one that I would see. Obviously, a William and Mary guy is not going to get taken in the first and second round, most likely. But if they need another guard and he's available, that was one of my like fun ones that I had found when I had delved into the world of mock draft. So I just wanted to throw a little surprise at you there.
No, I actually really like that because and then I've just been looking at some stuff online too because William and Mary, sort of like Miami, is kind of like one of these football hubs that people
Hmm.
don't really think about. But like Mike Tomlin went there and Sean McDermott went there and Joe Brady. Like it's these great like NFL minds went to this small school in Virginia. So, and I'm
Hmm.
looking at this now. Some Bengals guys. I'm scrolling through this little article. I think it's a couple years old, but yeah, it is. So those guys might not be on the thing anymore. But it's like there's minds that that go there, and
Hmm.
you're right. I mean, and we'll definitely. I think next week we're going to talk a lot more about some diamond in the roughs that we can find, especially in that 5, 6, 7 range, which guys that might not even be on roster. But it's stuff like that where you gotta have to trust the system that these guys are brought up in, and you did more research than me on some of this. I mean, you're looking at film and stuff like that. If you like them, I'll take your word for it.
But yeah, that was probably my like big one. A lot of them are just like the more prominent names that you hear at
Mhm,
defensive end. Obviously, I have a little bit of a Penn State bias because my mom is a Penn State alum,
mhm.
but I mean, I think Abdul Carter should go number 1, but obviously the
Yeah,
Bengals aren't gonna trade for number 1. That's a fever dream,
no,
but
we
that's not gonna happen.
are. Trying to some names that I liked. I talked about this before. Malachi Starks is a safety, is
Mhm,
a corner, a safety from Georgia, ball hawk, field general. Going to potentially be the best player on the board for wherever he goes. Maxwell Harrison, he went to UK against some of my bias coming out, but he was really great. He's fast. He has been a really elite NFL prospect for a couple years now since I've been
mhm,
following Kentucky football. And another name I saw that I hadn't seen before was this is more of a second round thing. It was a second round pick. It was Donovan Jackson. He's an offensive guard from Ohio State, 3 year starter. And the thing I liked about him was that he replaced one of Ohio State's best offensive linemen on that line during the national championship run. So he was already on the line. Guy goes down, he switches positions and play great. So it's stuff like that where versatile guy they can potentially get in round two if you take that edge in round one.
mhm. Yeah, I think that's a great steal. I looked at
No.
him too, and I was
Yeah.
like, there's a couple guys in here because, I mean, obviously you look at Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, like these big powerhouses, but I mean, if you look now at a lot of like these star guys, they're for the most part not coming
Mhm.
from places like that, which I think is so interesting is you're starting to see it more and more where like these not traditional Power 5 schools are having multiple members of their roster go in the first round, which I think is amazing that at the professional level, you don't have to be playing on the very best team to be
Totally.
going number 1 overall. I mean, Cam Ward, Miami, all love to Miami, Florida, but they are not exactly known for being a powerhouse in the ACC. So, like, and
Recently.
he recently,
Yeah.
and they are, and they're going to have a quarterback who, in most people's eyes, is going to be the number 1 overall pick because Tennessee desperately needs a quarterback because I
Yeah.
don't see them going with Will Levis. But yeah, I mean, it's just a true testament to the way scouting works, I think, and that they're able to find these guys no matter where they are.
I
So I
agree.
think that's really cool.
It's great. I think the Bengals are in a really sneaky good spot here. And
Yes.
I've talked about this before, is that like beginning of this off season, I was like, ugh, they're kind of in no man's land. It's not really a spot you want to be. but I think the Bengals will be at the benefit of what their specific draft needs are, matching up with a generational potential class at the same time, especially with rounds 1 and 2, which need to be absolute home runs. Like you can't stress this enough. This
Mhm.
cannot be a a guy that you sit and develop for a couple of years. It needs to be a guy that can potentially start week 1 versus whoever they play. It's as simple as that.
Yes, I think they need that from both their first and second round picks. Definitely
Totally.
their first, but I'd argue that they need someone from round 2 that can also come in week 1 and be a starter. There was one name that I found that I literally we talked about it off camera and I forgot to say it on, is I was looking, mostly it was like defensive end, whatever, and I saw this one draft where they had them picking Xavier Watts
Okay.
as at number 17 overall. He
Really?
is from Notre Dame. And I did a little bit of research when I found it because it honestly shocked me. I was like, that's I know they need somebody back there at DB, but I don't think he's I don't think he's what they need first. And one of the things that I found that was really, really interesting about him is he's kind of had like a sleeper college career. Like obviously
Mhm.
last year was a huge year for him. Like he was first team All American defensive back and was basically and only he had was only one of 2 consensus All-Americans in both 2023 and 2024, the other one being Travis Hunter. So just to put
Ah,
the playing level of where his talent falls is with Travis Hunter at that position. And he basically in 23 won, I'm gonna butcher the name, so I'm just gonna say the trophy that they give for the nation's top defender. He won
okay.
that over Travis Hunter in 2023. Travis Hunter beat him obviously this year. He went on to win the Heisman. So, but basically a lot of what they've talked about with him is that he has really good instincts and anticipation, which is like something that they said is like off the charts compared to even comparisons with current NFL roster players. So I saw that and that was something that really caught my attention now that I've seen it because they kind of just talk about he is this really anticipative guy, can read the play. And another important thing, he was one of the lowest penalized defensive backs in
Mm,
college football last year. And we know especially with the way refereeing seems to go, penalties can make a difference in these games.
totally. And you're missing a glaring thing is that his defensive coordinator is now the defensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. So
Yes,
that's that instant connection right there. So it's been great. You came very prepared. I just had a bunch of
locked and
names down.
loaded.
You were watching film. Hey, that's
Yeah,
great. I'm happy we can give the people what they want. I'm good with my names. I think we gave a pretty solid nice little layout for rounds 1 and 2. So
I think so.
yeah. So our expectation is that next Thursday we'll put out an episode on probably the rest of the way 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Give you some dark horses, give you some more ideas on what we think the Bengals are going to do. And that's kind of just a crapshoot, kind of once you hit round
Oh,
4,
yeah.
what they're going to do. But we'll do our best to give you the best information possible. And then the next week, we were going to put out a Friday episode with an instant reaction to the Bengals round 1 selection, and then a subsequent wrap up show that's Sunday or Monday. And as always, we will come at you live with any glaring
Yes.
Bengals news that could happen in the next week or so. So,
Mhm.
on behalf of Caroline Palmer, my name is Owen Timmerding, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Welcome to the Jungle. Have a good one.